3 Cornish Piskies and Their Amazing Adventures. 8 Cornish Stories for Children by Karenza Veor and illustrated by Jeremy Jocelyn. Story 1. How It All Began. It was a lovely summer's day. 3 children, Zachary, Oliver and Charlotte, decided to go for a ride on their bikes. They asked their mum if they could go, and she said yes. She packed them some sandwiches and gave them each a bottle of drink. Off they went. Zachary suggested that they go up towards Ding Dong Mine. It was a steep climb up the hill, and Oliver and Charlotte were soon puffing and panting. "Is it much further?" asked Charlotte. "I think my legs are going to give out." "It's not far now," said Zachary. "Keep going." When they got to the Menentoll, they thought they'd have a rest. So they sat down by the large stones and had a drink. "I know," said Oliver. "Let's climb through the stone with the hole in it. Old Sam the farmer told me it's good luck to do that." "That's not what I heard," said Zachary. "I heard that if you crawl through the stone, it'll bring bad luck, especially if you do it on a particular day." "Which day?" asked Oliver. But Charlotte was already running towards the stone. "I'll beat you both there," she shouted. The others were not going to be left out, and they rushed after her. Charlotte was the youngest, and Oliver overtook her and crawled through just ahead of her, with Zachary bringing up the rear. "Ah!" screamed Charlotte as she looked back at Oliver. "Ah!" yelled Oliver as he looked at Charlotte. "What's that? There's a monster here!" And he started to run back to the bikes. Charlotte ran in the other direction as fast as she could. Zachary hadn't seen what had happened to the other two. "Where are you going?" he shouted after them. "To get away from that monster," they both shouted at the same time. "What monster?" They both turned round, and Zachary looked at them. "Two monsters!" he screamed, and he started to run. Then he stopped. Those were not monsters. They were his brother and sister. "Stop!" he shouted at them. "Something's happened to us. You've changed, and you look like monsters, but you're still you." The other two stopped and looked at him. Zachary, too, now looked quite hideous, perhaps more than the others. "You look terrible," said Oliver. "So do you," said Zachary. They came cautiously back together and looked hard at each other. The harder they looked, the more they changed. Their hair grew longer and changed colour. Zachary had become short and fat with a big head. Oliver was now very, very thin. Charlotte's legs had grown to such a length she was now much taller than the other two. Zachary's eyes were bright green. Oliver's were piercing blue, and Charlotte's were a kind of yellowy colour. Their clothes had changed as well. They were all wearing strange costumes, as if they'd just come out of a pantomime. Zachary had a greeny-brown tunic. Oliver had a dark blue tunic. Charlotte had a dirty yellow tunic. They all had tight-fitting leggings, and when they looked at their feet, they saw brown leather shoes that curled up at the point. "What are we going to do?" asked Charlotte. "Mum won't recognize us and chase us away." "Yes, she might even report us to the police, or even drop down dead from fright," said Oliver. "I'll tell you what you're going to do," said a squeaky voice from behind one of the standing stones. "What? Who's there?" said Zachary. "I am," said the squeaky voice. "Who are you?" "I'm Jasper, the Pisky of Menentoll." And out hopped a little bouncy figure in bright green. "What? Where did you come from?" "I live here, and I can tell you what you're going to do. But first, I'm going to do something to you." Pisky Jasper put his hand into his pocket and waved a forked stick at the children. Suddenly they all felt very tired. They sank to the ground in a deep sleep. When they woke up, Pisky Jasper was standing there. "Ah, you're awake again. Now, what did you say your names were?" "Ghoulie," said the fat one with the big head. "Ghosty," said the very thin one with the piercing blue eyes. "And I'm Beastie," said the one with the very long legs. "Very good. Now, can you remember where you live?" "We've forgotten," said Ghoulie. "You live over there in Ding Dong Mine. So isn't it time you were getting home?" said Pisky Jasper. "Yes," said Ghoulie, and they set off. "Don't forget," Pisky Jasper shouted after them, "you live in the adit just down from the surface. If you go to any of the levels below, you'll upset the other Piskies." The children, or rather Piskies, continued walking in the direction of Ding Dong Mine. "Hey!" shouted Pisky Jasper, "have you forgotten how to travel round here? All you've got to do is wish that you were there, and you will be." Obediently they stood still and wished they were at Ding Dong Mine. And in the blink of an eye, they were. Meanwhile, their mother was getting worried. Zachary, Oliver, and Charlotte still had not come home. She called their father. "The children went out on their bikes today, and they're very late getting back." "Give them a little while longer," said their father. But when he got home, there was still no sign of the children. So they called the police. A search party was sent out and searched right across the moors. Eventually someone reported that they had seen 3 bikes near Menantol, and the remains of the sandwiches were still there. But there was no sign of the children. And that's the end of story number 1.